Then we're going to talk about our mural project. We're going to talk about signs and future projects. That's the proposed agenda, and we hope to be able to accomplish that by 5:30. So we're going to start off with Rick. I know we're missing Rafi, but he's probably trying to find a place to park. So
Well,
Rick, dig in.
update.
Tell us what DOT project this is. Is this the downtown?
This is the downtown drainage improvements for Elm Street and part of Main Street that the DOT will be doing next spring, is what their plan is right now. And basically just shows going from Union Street down through by Chestnut Street and then over to about this middle crosswalk there on Main Street.
The middle crosswalk?
Yeah, it's all on the south side or the
McKay?
water side. Yeah, roughly Point McKay, I guess, somewhere in that vicinity. It's only on the south side of the street, or roughly the, what you call the water side of the street, and then going down the Harbor Walkway alleyway easement there, going down to the water. And they're doing sidewalk improvements, correct? Sidewalk and drainage, basically, replacing catch basins and storm drain down through that side.
Yeah, what's there now? Is that,
Parking, too?
Pardon?
Parking?
Yes, they'll just be redoing some of the parking. Yeah, yeah.
One of the questions, there was a report on NPR a week or so ago that the budgets for their projects had come in way over budget. And so they were going to have to rethink everything they were doing. Do you know where that fits in with this situation?
Yeah, some of I guess some of the work they were going to do on the other side of the street is not going to be done now. It's mostly just on the water side and one little section on the corner of Mechanic Street.
I'm confused. There's drainage on both sides, and they're only going to do one side?
Right now, they only have this one side of the street that they can work on.
So not all of the street's going to be torn up and replaced?
Correct, not the street, just the drainage, just the sidewalk, like
So they
where the
won't be
village,
going
and the
into
village green
street
side.
On Route 1 at all, right?
Is the drainage
No,
under
not-
the sidewalk or on the street?
No, it's in the curb, the gutter, along the gutter where the catch basins are. You have the sidewalk by
Oh,
Village
yeah,
Green, and you have
right.
the catch basin, and storm drain is next to that. So they'll be working, that's going to be their scope of work is going to be, well, you can see a broken line on here. It's kind of small, all this, but where that broken line is, kind of shows about where the,
so what's wrong
Work area
with it
is-
now? Is there a broken line, you're saying?
it's antiquated. That line has been there for, I don't know how many years,
Yeah.
longer than I've been here, so.
Yeah,
And they are seeing some failure in that
A
one.
lot of failure all on there. Several of the catch basins are collapsing because they're just old brick-built catch basins instead of precast concrete. It's old corrugated metal pipe that's all deteriorated, rotted out, and the bottom of it's rotted out. We just have another new sinkhole over in the French and Braun crosswalk. So that is in part of this, so I think that may be added.
Right, I think that was the email I got, that they'd have to probably look at that, too.
Will granite curbs be replaced?
Yes.
Yes.
What about,
And then there was some sidewalk work that was going to come up, Mechanic. That's not happening as part of it.
That's not happening now, but they were doing that corner right there.
they're doing the corner on French and Braun or the corner on the graphics
On the
store, the T-shirt store?
The T-shirt store.
So in our downtown master plan, in that section, we have proposed extension of sort of the curb, creating somewhat of a bump out. And we have that same thing on the ends of
Right.
Chestnut Street. Since they're doing really basically only what you were calling the water side, the Village Green side and the water side of Route 1, are they only going to do sidewalks on that side? So some of the work that's in the master plan and was part of the downtown enhancement grant that we have is not going to be happening? They're only rebuilding sidewalk where they tear up the drainage?
That's correct, except for the intersection of Mechanic Street by the T-shirt
Okay.
section. They will be doing some work on that corner right there.
Yep.
They'll be bumping that out and making a new pedestrian access there.
Yeah.
No little island there?
Yeah.
Not an island, but a bump, well,
Just
bump
a
out,
bump.
not an island.
Not an
That
island.
is part of what we
Yeah.
had decided we
Part of
wanted. and
That's part of the
Right.
plan, right.
Yeah.
So they are narrowing that crosswalk area between F and B and the,
Yes, and it's really difficult to tell on this plan. It's just a,
Yep.
I can't tell much looking at it. It doesn't really define
And
the
they
road
are
or anything.
extending the island, I call it an island, just that comes out off of if you're heading north on the water side when you pass the public green, and then you got Chestnut and the bank. They're making that much an
Right.
island there.
Yes, over here by Chestnut, corner of Chestnut
oh, the
Street and
corner
the
of
bank.
Chestnut by
Yeah.
the Village
And-
Green.
More like a
And by
peninsula?
Bayview,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
a little bit by
Not the
Bayview.
island, but a peninsula.
We had, when we were first in business, when we put a little, chair, yeah, a
James,
little,
and yes,
yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
That's
to get an idea of
how
how it would
where it
work.
would be living, yeah.
A lot of that is for the pedestrian access for the slopes, to get the correct slopes and everything there, and they will extend that out.
What is their projection? You said sometime in the spring?
Yeah, they didn't really give us a date. They just,
They did
I think as soon as they can start construction in the spring is probably when they'll do it.
What about the Harbor Walkway? Have you had any detailed discussions about what they're going to do on the Harbor Walkway and what the opportunity is there? We had talked a lot on this committee, and we'd given a list of concepts of our priorities for how we wanted that Harbor Walkway to look. Has there been any conversation with the DOT about what they're going to do actually in the Harbor Walkway, or are they just going to dig it up, put the drainage in, and put it back as is? Do we know?
They didn't really talk much about it. The last I knew, they were just going to dig it up and put it back the way it was, the way it is right now, which will be, but it'll be a smoother surface. They'll redo the asphalt. And if we want to do anything different, then I think that would be up to us.
Yeah, I think that's right. And they're struggling with, I mean, if they do something different, they have to make it accessible, fully accessible going down there. And I think that's their challenge, is trying to actually make it accessible.
Are they doing anything to the grade? Are they able to do anything to the grade?
I believe so. Not as part of this.
I do,
That's too bad, because that's part of what we had hoped to accomplish when they were redoing this, is to be able to work with them and incorporate some
I
of
mean,
the
well,
ideas that
I
we
guess,
had.
I mean, Rick
So it
and I
won't
can
be
reach out
accessible
to
that way,
Arel
the way they
and
wanna do
Doug
it.
a little bit on this and see really what their plan is there. But as I recall, it's just like what Rick said at the moment.
We have the Downtown Enhancement Grant
Yep.
that talks about making these kinds of improvements, and there's a town match that we are putting into it. And the town match was to go for some of these streetscape enhancements and even the Harbor Walkway. So my concern is our money, our match, the Downtown Enhancement Grant, only going to help defray some of the overall costs? And what is the town going to receive for its portion of what we're contributing to the Downtown Enhancement Grant? In other words, our dollars, can our dollars go to improvements on the Harbor Walkway? So it's not just the asphalt that we have now. Can we use some of our match in order to make that Harbor Walkway better?
And work with,
And work with
With
DOT
DOT,
in order
right.
to accomplish that at the same time they're putting it back together.
because they're pretty good about, or at least I've seen some projects they've done where they've incorporated what the community wants and tried to work with them to, and I think they know, don't they?
well, I think this is what we talked about before, is what we would have to do, pick up the slack of whatever it would cost extra for money. But we have to have a design, of course, of what we want to do. And so you're coming back to that, do we just leave it the way it is? Or do you, how much improvement do you want to make there? And how much can you make?
Well, I think that's a discussion
That's the
that
struggle that
has.
they're facing.
Jeremy?
I think that's the struggle they're facing on the ADA compliance
Right,
issue
right.
there.
So
And
if
that's
they
what
leave
we
it the
would do.
same, they don't have to, I'm sorry, Donna.
Correct.
A certain expenditure kicks in, the need to make it handicap accessible.
Not under this scenario, I don't believe. I think if they're just repairing, if they're repairing the storm line that goes down, they can go right back to exactly what's there.
But if we wanted to do anything to enhance, it could kick in, the need for making it absolutely compliant, couldn't it?
Well, it's more the grade.
Area, right, do we have the area to get it?
The elevations are trying to make that work.
Right, that's the
And it doesn't
expense.
matter about how much money you have, it's,
Whether or not it can work.
yeah,
Is it
whether or not you can work. Is it possible?
Because we talked about sort of doing a gradual.
We did it, we were going to
climb.
terrace it,
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Flatten it, come down, flatten it, go down.
but you can't do that for a wheelchair. You can't.
No.
But you
Yeah.
could have intermediate ramps, I would think.
But even so, the grade is too steep. I mean,
Well, I haven't done the numbers and looked at it, but I think what's gonna happen is you're gonna end up way out into the landing
Where-
with this,
yeah.
with this
To get
Slope,
the slope.
landing, slope, landing, slope,
Yeah.
landing. But,
yeah.
I mean, I'll touch base with them, and Rick and I can touch base with them and see.
Is that going to be?
You need
uh,
our list
a
that
copy
we
of that
put
to look
together
at
for
at your
Audra of
office?
what our concepts were for the Harbor Walkway. Would that be something I
Me,
could send
you
to
can
you?
resend it to me?
Where do you keep them? At your place? or
Yeah.
in here?
Yeah, not much to
What
look at.
about, at the very minimum, building a handrail, a railing to go down that if we, for the foreseeable future, let's say we're not able to work out doing something along the lines that we were hoping for, but
A
could
little
we
more
at least
stable.
have a railing that makes it look safer? Could get more people to go down there, because then that's one of the signs that it's a walkway, is that you've got
Yeah.
a railing that goes down there, and it would make it safer and
Yeah.
more accessible.
And as you know, I'm not handicapped, but I'm getting on in years. And, I need rails when I'm
Right.
going down a
Right.
steep
Yep.
slope like
You
that.
have to remember, if you want
We all
this,
do.
Wait, guys, yes, Rick?
if you want to make this year-round, you have to be able to plow down through there also, so
True.
you have to have room to get
Have a
through.
rail in the center, for instance.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
But you could, if you
You'd
had
have
it
to have
anywhere. it would
You'd have
help.
to have it on one side or have it removable or something
Yeah.
for the winter.
How wide a cut does your little
Well,
sidewalk plow?
The side is 4 feet wide, 48 inches wide, but you still need room to maneuver
Yeah.
and slide around and crash into things and that sort of thing. It gets icy there sometimes,
Yeah.
you end up sliding down.
Well, I'll get you the list of our
Yep.
walkway desires, and if you could ask about that, but also ask about the possibility of a railing.
And when you say spring, you're talking next spring,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
2020.
We've had no spring
We've had
in
no spring.
We're still
19.
waiting for spring.
We were still waiting for it, yeah.
And they are talking again, realigning parking spaces.
And is that
Likely
only
some will be
on the
removed.
side that they are building the new sidewalk? Because they're leaving
both
the other
sides.
side alone, correct?
They are, it depends on how, they have to work out the center lines and
Right.
all this and that.
But if they have to redo crosswalks, they would have to do both sides.
Well, yeah, if they're redoing, but it would just be that section,
immediate
just that
area.
area of the crosswalk.
Right, but isn't there a risk of us losing parking spaces because of the,
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah, there's
will,
always
we
risk
will,
of
we
that,
will lose
and
some parking
They
spaces.
may have to
No
move
question.
things around or whatever. I don't know if they, I mean, the plan is really, it's kind of hard to tell
It is hard to tell at this
with
scale.
what's going on in the plan.
Well, it would just be nice to have some input if we could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On,
All of this.
So one,
the reality is, I think the loss of parking spaces, we're not going to be able to have much say in that at all.
I agree.
But this other stuff, absolutely. I think we will do our best.
so one thing to do is to get in touch with Rick and examine those plans. I'm used to doing that from what we had on Route 1 North, and they're not easy to read, but you'll be able to pick up quite a bit. So read those first before you make suggestions. It's my suggestion.
Yeah, we probably should. You have, one set? Do you have a set in your office?
Oh, you do? Okay.
So
So
we could,
Again, it's a small set like that, and a lot of the lines are hard to read. They're going to do a fair amount of, there are going to be new catch basins too, just so people know. Drainage,
just one side,
drainage has
though.
been a
How
problem,
far up the
yes.
sidewalk? How far up is it going on Main Street?
Point McCain.
Somewhere around Boyd,
Across the street from
From
Boynton.
across from Point McCain.
Union,
What?
Union?
Union
Union
the other
to,
side of
that's
Point
Elm
McCain.
Street. and then it's going partway up Main Street, but I don't know what business is there. Maybe it's somewhere, where's that center crosswalk?
Once a tree.
Once a tree.
On the tree, so that's about where they're
That's
going
as
to.
far as it'll go?
Yeah. Let me see.
I think at one point they were going to try to have
Business
both
is
of these,
on here.
this project
I don't know
and
what's there.
the bridge project work at the same time.
Yeah,
That's not
not
able,
gonna
not
happen.
happening.
So
Well, that'll be
they're-
the next step is the bridge project.
They're starting up at the Montessori school.
Yes.
Oh,
So-
you own it.
That's gonna all be redrained, re-sidewalked, so are they doing
it.
things such
So
as
that's-
moving those,
yeah.
moving telephone poles that are along there? Because I'm looking at a picture now, the corner of the Montessori School,
Sort of
Union,
tell
and,
by looking at this,
that
kind of
telephone
separate.
pole is just at the edge of the sidewalk. Are they gonna make the sidewalk exactly as it is now, or
It's,
is it
probably-
too soon to know that?
It should be exactly as it is. I don't think they have to work within the right of way. If they don't, then they have to buy easements or get easements and
Yeah,
that sort of thing. I don't think they're,
And the right-of-way there is pretty wide at that corner. So you've got that big stone,
Right.
and there's a big tree,
Yes.
right? There's that boulder, there's that tree. They're going to be on the other side of, they're going to actually take the sidewalk behind that stone.
Oh, so they're not moving the
Oh, is that
telephone
me?
pole.
That's me.
Correct, that's my understanding.
No, no, no.
Nor are they removing the tree.
How long are they projecting the project to be, do they say?
I don't remember them
them
saying, having a time frame, but I know they want to work within the, I don't think they're going to be there in the summer.
Good, okay,
I think they want to have it done before that.
all right. I had no idea how long it would take.
Yeah, I don't know what,
They're going to set it up so that, the sidewalks are usable and completely removed from the work.
Deb, what was the amount of our grant?
The total grant is somewhere around $600,000. The grant from the state was 425 or 35, and then we had the balance as a match, and that was coming from our TIF account. I could put that in the minutes for you, the notes
Okay.
from the meeting, so you know.
Okay, that'd be great.
I have it in one of my files. What is your next step, gentlemen, Jeremy and Rick? When is the DOT coming back to you, and at what stage are they coming back to you? Are they coming back to you to have another conversation about finish, all of these details? Do you know when they're coming back?
I don't think they haven't made any plans on,
Right.
or they haven't made a date, scheduled a date or anything yet.
What's their next step then? I mean, they've got, these are plans to go out to bid, or are these plans,
Still design
construction
plans.
plan? Are they
Construction
still-
plans that they're not ready to go out to bid yet.
They didn't say anything about going out to bid yet,
But these are the construction plans.
correct?
And they're not final.
Okay, so there would be.
The engineer's still working on them.
Okey-doke.
I mean, we saw some things, what was it? Culverts or drainage catch basins that were there, or he said they were existing, but they're not there, or. vice
Yeah,
versa.
there was some, I can't even remember what they were,
there any eminent
everything was
domain?
now.
No, none needed in there, I don't believe, on this project.
All right, so
I can
that's,
follow up with an email to them and then shoot a response back to all of you.
that'd be great, Jeremy. Because we don't want the opportunity to go by not to have a say to as much degree as we possibly can about what the sort of the finish is going to be like, particularly on the harbor walkway.
And then typically, like, we'd weigh in on, like, what you might call street furniture, like maybe putting in those metal braille things that go in the sidewalk.
They'll be putting that'll all be in at the pedestrian walkways.
Yeah, but
That's
like the design of them, because I know some municipalities have rejected when they've tried to put in plastic ones, and they want the metal ones, which I think they look much more substantial and in keeping with town.
Well, the metal ones are the new style that they're putting in now. They found out the plastic doesn't hold up in this area in the wintertime due to snow removal.
And then, but then on High Street, we've gotten like brick, and it hasn't held up.
No, that was the old style. They got rid of that because, again, the little nubs on top of the brick were
Right.
cleaned off of the sidewalk of the house.
So those are the things we ought to look at. Those are the,
Are there any other things you ought to think about?
like, the curbing is important, and once I look at it, it comes to mind, I can't.
I mean, I think they all do, it's all gonna be granite curbing.
It's all granite curbing. I don't think there's anything.
They'll
That's
have to match up with what's still there,
Yeah.
that they're not touching,
Hopefully you'll
right?
be able to reuse some of what's there. But when you're at the crosswalk and they slope it down so it's accessible, the materials that are used in the slope down before you get to the braille pad, that can make a difference too. Is it gonna be asphalt, is it gonna be concrete, or is it gonna be brick, or can it be, with a certain amount of money, can it be granite stone, granite paving
Riprap.
stones, or something like
I
that?
believe all sidewalk surface is going to be concrete. If it's not, that's what that was the plan for the downtown, is all the sidewalks downtown at some point were going to become concrete. The only thing that isn't, as far as I know, is around on Chestnut Street and up through by the Village Green up to Union Street.
So they would be putting in concrete, replacing that asphalt, which is great. I mean, that's.
Yes, and that's been a plan for a while.
Okay, so that's a big improvement. But what we have in sort of the step-down area, if we wanted to see what it would cost to do something a little more upscale, if I want to use that word, or more aesthetically pleasing other than concrete.
However,
Or is that
concrete
not-
has some advantage in that it's less slippery than some of the things you mentioned, like
Like the-
granite or,
Like pavers, in other words.
that would be acceptable, for not being slippery.
Because then it also would be also a good warning under your feet, because it's, the
Right.
surface changes.
Those are things to look at and come up with ideas or questions.
So we have some time. Obviously, they're not about to go out to bid in the next 2 weeks.
No, but I mean, I will say, I mean, some of the project got scaled down from where it was due to pricing. And,
Right.
I mean, I know we have, and I don't know all that we have available to us and what we can use that for.
Great.
But some of this may be dictated by what, DOT can do.
Right.
So.
It'd be
we
nice to
can't
find out
have this
what they.
project, again, shut, just nixed because it's way over budget, because we're asking for some things. Right?
Well, we could ask and see what they say.
Correct. And if we have the ability to fund it with our match,
Our match or
then that may be.
TIF money,
Right,
other
then we
TIF
can do
monies.
that, but I think we just need to be cognizant that DOT's in a world of hurt right now in all of their projects.
Yeah, they've canceled a bunch, haven't they?
Quite a few. Mostly, the scary things are like bridges have been
Yeah,
canceled. I have one last DOT question. Does anybody know, since we're on the subject, does anybody know the status of the Route 1 North project? From the state park to the Lincolnville town line?
I mean, I think
I
that.
didn't see it on the list of cancellations.
Oh, it's
but-
not on the list of cancellations, it's not on the list to be done this year. I mean, they're still doing negotiations and all that with property owners.
I think they had just recently started that.
Right.
Oh, they've just started the
Right.
easement.
Easements and all
Side
that,
of things.
takings and all
Okay.
that stuff, yeah.
Can you find those online, the cancellations? Where'd you find out about them?
I think they're probably on DOT's website. I mean, I think there's a list of 50 of
And I
them.
saw it in the Portland Press Herald.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I saw the
List of
local
the
ones in
towns.
the local papers.
Yeah, I have it sort of alphabetically by town, the bridge, a lot of them were bridge repairs or bridge replacements, but work in Portland and other roads. Is there anything else, Rick?
No, not that I know of right now.
I will say, on the DOT end, I met with their regional planner
Is that O'Rell?
last week. No, Steve Cole, and he gave me their list, kind of this next 3-year, what their project lists are for the next 3 years. It's remarkable how much work is proposed in Camden, like 3 pages that they have in the works in Camden. I mean, this is part of it, and there's a whole host of other ones, stabilization on slopes. But he was amazed, which is a good thing. I mean, the state is investing in Camden quite a bit. They have a planner that's working, trying to be out in front, which they never have done before, working with municipalities. So that's a good a good thing.
What about the Southern Gateway project that was put on hold because that bid came in over a year ago, so over budget?
Southern Gateway as in Hannaford?
The Hannaford project.
And as I recall, we're going to try to bid those out with 105.
Yeah, that's what they were talking
So
about.
the sidewalk project that Gartley and Dorsey's working on, and we're going to try to bid that out at the same time with the hopes of rebidding that with the sidewalk project.
And getting a better price with putting it all, hopefully putting it all together.
Yeah.
I'm just checking because Rafi hasn't made it. I'm just, if you will forgive me, I'm
We will forgive you.
gonna check.
Here's
Rafi, I did get an
more of a.
email from him. He's running late.
Here's the boulder.
I will leave as soon as I can. He has MFA show. Okay. All right, good. Well, since he's not here, I'd like to hold off on the mural discussion until Rafi gets here. And we had put on the agenda sign project. And in our actual work plan, which I sent out to everybody, what we had on the town signs was really creating guidelines,
Look at it. That'd be another one, yeah.
determining font family color schemes, which is one of the reasons we had thought about bringing in a consultant to talk to us, and come up with some sort of a process for how signs might be reviewed. But we also have the downtown master plan, which is something that we are supposed to be helping implement and move through. So I wondered what you all thought about taking the downtown master plan that we have and its recommendations for the various, there's directional signs, pedestrian signs, kiosks, parking signs, and the downtown master plan has all those locations for those on the plan on Route 1, Mechanic Street, Elm Street, Main Street, that section. And I wondered what you all thought about, and particularly in light of this project with the MDOT, taking a look at each one of those sort of streets section by section and in person reviewing exactly where the master plan was suggesting these things go to see if they still work today. Because our master plan was sort of put together in 2012 and there have been some changes on sign locations. And what I gave you guys, and I'm sorry I didn't photocopy them in the right order, I walked Elm Street to see with where the master plan was recommending we have locations for things, and took pictures, and I very crudely sort of plugged in little marks where they are proposing. And on Elm Street, I found that they were pretty problematic with what we have there now. And I don't know whether that's the case on the rest of the locations. If you want to take a look at the ones that have the stop and go, I have a sort of a current, go ahead.
I just wanted to interrupt we want to keep in mind that everything on the water side there where the drainage project is keep that in mind, that we're not going to do anything different because we don't know what they're going to change there.
Right, and actually what I walked coming down Elm Street, the Village Green has got a proposed kiosk on that bump out. But if you take a look at the page that has just two pictures of sort of the stop and go intersection without any of my little crude marks on it, you can take a look at what looking down the stop and go in the intersection of Union Street looks like now and what the combination of signs look like. And then you look at the picture I have of it with the yellow rectangle and the green rectangle. And when I looked at it and I looked at their proposed locations, I realized with the current conditions, these sign locations, at least on Elm Street, don't work really well. Rafi, we decided to move on to have a short discussion about signs.
Okay,
Since
great.
we were missing you. And you missed the DOT discussion, but we'll bring you up to date, and we'll do it through notes or having another meeting. So we were looking at, can you, Richard, can you pass that down?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought it might be an interesting idea, since the signs are on our list, to compare where the master plan recommends directional signage and parking signs and kiosks, and take a look at on-the-ground current conditions. And so what you're looking at is a picture of current conditions, and then I tried to put where they recommended signs.
Oh, yeah, great.
And in the case of the Union Street intersection, the first thing I noticed is you wouldn't be able to see much if you were in line coming north and you were stopped at that stop sign by the stop and go, because of all the signs that are already there. So I'm concerned that we may have that condition in other places. So I didn't know whether it made any sense for us to, and I know this is very crude, I don't have a tricky program, and I don't have Photoshop. And I did the same thing walking down towards the Village Green. At the corner of Wood Street, they recommend having a directional sign, but that, you can see it says, the picture says pedestrian directional. You see that green circle on this page? Well, there's really not any space there, and that's right where the bank is, and maybe there's a better location. So in other words, my thought is, maybe we ought to look at the master plan in reality in today's world, and particularly with the project that's happening. We have plans. Maybe we ought to think about, is our master plan's recommendations appropriate today? It's just a thought of one way of approaching.
No, I think it makes sense. I will say, like, one of the crosswalks up here is going to be relocated.
Yeah, I also wanted to say on Wood Street, where the smoothie shack is, that wide opening there will be
Narrowed.
delineated, more of a sidewalk.
That curb cut's going to
The curb
be
cut
less.
won't be as large.
So it won't be a wide open
Correct.
entrance to the
It'll be more-
smoothie shack. and the-
Correct.
In other words, you won't be driving up to the smoothie shack, because there'll be a curb there?
No, you can, there'll be an entryway, but there'll be a.
Oh.
Yeah, it won't be that lot line to lot line of curb, of driveway. It'll be a curbed.
But not sidewalk.
Also, during the
Oh, there will be
project that we're going there, you may be able to talk to DOT, it's probably something we ought to talk to them about, is the relocation of like their junction, Route 105 and Route 1 signage that they have there, just kind of
Yeah.
figure out if we jumping around, maybe we can figure out a way.
And I didn't look
better-
through the plan to see if they were relocating those in any, I didn't look that hard, but, they're using the standards, the required standards, for location of these things, so if they're not right, I gotta believe they're gonna be relocated to the right location.
Right.
But we should Rick and I can maybe look through that.
Is that something you guys would do, is
Sure.
look at their plan to see where they, if they propose to put signage? Because we have some places, certainly on Elm Street, where there's a lot of signage happening at the same time. And if we think about going forward with wayfinding in the community, we need to either find a way to eliminate, combine, some of the suggestions are pedestrian directional signage, and so some of that, perhaps some of the other things we have, those signs can be combined, but
And I think part of my email to DOT, I'll just ask for a better, more legible plan that we can try to work off of, coming from the signage perspective moving forward. Because that's what really, we can go out there and walk up and down the area, but that's not what it's going to be like, a year and a half from now.
Yeah, we have a nice plan that we can mark up.
that's a really great idea, because particularly if they're going to move the sidewalk behind the Conway boulder and behind the tree, that makes a difference on where you'd be putting any parking sign or directional sign as well.
And then the crosswalk down here, right, is going to be relocated, the one that's
The
by
one on-
Rite Aid.
The Rite Aid
Yes.
crosswalk's
Is
being
going to be
relocated?
relocated.
Is it going up?
Up, I believe
North,
up.
south?
South.
South,
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
Well, maybe we can rethink Elm Street once we know what the,
Well, and that's what I was saying.
Plans
We ought
are-
to probably work off of that plan.
but we have Mechanic Street, we have Washington Street in the downtown master
Yeah,
plan
yeah.
for
Closer to
wayfinding
Drury,
signage. I think some on Bayview Street
Yeah.
as well. And so maybe we ought to take a look at current condition versus proposed.
I think so.
What do you all think of doing that as
Well, I
a way
think
to
it's going to
refine?
take some effort. It's going to take somebody who can devote a little time to it. You're not going to look at that in 5 minutes and then come up with something.
Oh, I don't mean on Elm Street and Main Street
Oh.
right now. We have other streets in the downtown master plan that has proposed locations for wayfinding. And my thought was, somebody could take Bayview Street, if it's on the downtown master plan with proposed signs, and take a look at where those signs are proposed to be, and does it work with what we've got on the ground today?
And what's on the ground today, what do you mean? What's on the
What's
other
what current,
How it
signs?
actually
exactly,
is.
what actually exists, what current conditions are, and is there a conflict with the location?
Like doing this.
Kind of like doing that, but maybe not as
Perfect,
crudely.
only this is the road that we can't do right now.
That's the road we can't do right now,
So,
is the one I walked,
Thanks for all that effort.
The Mechanic Street,
Yeah.
Washington Street
Yeah.
intersection. We have signs on Washington Street, we have signs on Mechanic Street. So I thought was, if somebody was willing to take a street and do that, we could at least be prepared when we get to the point where we know we want to fund wayfinding, we want to fund all of that, then we'd be a leg up and we would know what locations make sense or not. But that's a suggestion.
This photograph sort of indicates that we want to put all the information at every intersection. I mean, we have a speed limit, we have a Route 1 sign, we have, the directional signage needs to be there, I think, and that the speed limit sign can be a little remote from that, and so can the Route 1 sign. Maybe the Route 1 sign comes before the intersection. I think those things, this is just visual chaos right here.
That you're going to be confounded by federal regulations, like,
On distances where signs need to be in
I'm
relation
sure
to it.
that comes into play, but
But we
Well,
can
I think
ask.
When we talk with DOT and talk about signage during that time, then we can figure out where they can relocate, and they'll know where they can move
Yeah,
and stuff.
I'll send an email tomorrow to Arel and Doug on this very question about signage. We want to limit as much signage as we can, understanding that they have requirements on where these signs need to be relocated or located to, and just work with us.
Can we have a conversation, or a couple of conversations about it? Because one of the other issues, Donna, at that intersection is all of the stop-and-go signage.
That's right.
Which can block being able to see any signage on the other side of on the Montessori school side. Because if you look at that picture,
yeah.
yeah, Donna, with respect to visual clutter, I think we have more purview over what we can control than the federal stuff, the speed limits.
Oh, I understand that.
and we would have
Lots of parking signs and all that
we have more control on Mechanic Street, Bayview Street, Washington, et cetera, than we do right now on Elm and Main Street.
But if there's a standard, and I'm sure there is, how far speed limit signs need to be away from each other, maybe they can approach it, understanding we have an issue with a cluster of signs here, so if they can work their way back
Right.
and then reset them on their way up, right?
Yes, that would be wonderful to see.
If we
what that
choose
happens.
these locations, what assurance do we have that we can move ahead and get signs put where we think we want to? I mean, whose responsibility is it to install those signs, and who pays for it?
Well, if we're doing the wayfinding signs, that's on the town.
It is on the town.
That's the town. The signs that,
Wayfinding is strictly parking and
pedestrian
pedestrianations.
destinations,
Yeah, okay.
a kiosk, an informational sign, that kind of thing.
Right. If it's a speed limit sign and so on, that's not ours, yeah.
Or route signs,
Yeah.
things like that. And I think if we want to move forward with any of this, we have to do enough work to be able to get something in the budget for next year. If we're going to move forward with having any
Okay.
wayfinding, it has to be something that's going to get budgeted somehow. So that's why I thought this was a relatively easy place to start was just pinning down exactly where we might want them. Does that make some sense to you guys?
Yes.
It makes sense except for one thing, it might be nitpicking. You do Bayview Street, I'm doing Mechanic Street, but both of us are coming from different
Perspectives.
perspectives. And it's no, like, we might not end up with a common
Form.
solution
Well, but the
unless
first,
we have like a central person.
Guideline, yeah.
well, the first step would be sort of, I thought what I did is, what's the current condition of the area where the master plan says to put the sign? I
Yep.
mean, I think that's the step we're doing, and then I think we can come together and talk about how to
Yeah,
have that uniform
okay,
philosophy of going forward.
okay.
But this seems to me
This is
something we
just
could
a
bite off.
note where they plan to have them, the master plan, where they've mapped it.
And does that make sense?
Yeah.
To us with
Right.
whatever signs we have? And do we have a town sign there that we would want moved perhaps because it would conflict with whatever? Just. So, who wants to do the Mechanic Street, Washington Street intersection? Who wants to do in front of the public safety building? Who wants to do Bayview Street, or who wants to do Mechanic Street from, F&B around the corner? I mean, splitting it up, I think, would be fair.
It would be, I kind of like the idea of a team.
Okay?
Yeah.
I would prefer going with somebody else and kind of bouncing ideas off somebody.
Great.
And so maybe the team takes two different locations. We first figure out how many different streets we want to do and then divide it up and see.
Is there any,
I mean,
No, I think that's a
would
great
have-
idea, Meg. I would go along with you. Have two people do it together. It's super.
does the town have any plan of the streets so we can be working off of something?
We have the GIS or the.
Our signage, does signage even show up on those? No.
No, but large enough that you could mark, where it is on the plan as opposed
I
to,
mean, I'm sure we
You
could
can print
print,
it
I'm
off.
sure we could
There are
print you
sections in
something.
here, you know that, so.
Yeah, there's
We could
sections in the
Xerox those.
downtown master plan. For instance, Richard, here's
Yeah.
a summary of it.
right, right.
And it shows where they are and what the types are. They have a key.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you see the individual sections where they propose streetscapes,
Mm-hmm.
they have a detail list that says what, for instance,
Yep.
let's say that part of Elm Street has its own page. And they have numbers, 1 through 10.
Nice to
and-
blow that up.
and we could blow that up, and it says, number 1 is add a tree here, number 2 is add a directional sign here, so you can see it specifically, and it's in the master plan.
Well, if you're just doing like an intersection, if you're going to say you're going to do 50 feet on each street out of an intersection, just picking a number, you can take the GIS map, take the layers off, so you just basically have the lineage of the street and maybe the buildings or something, and then you can mark it up how you want.
That'd be ideal,
I think that way you get rid of all the clutter,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
just have what's here. You look at that,
Ideal.
there's too much clutter, to
Yeah.
try to put something else in there and focus on what you're doing.
Then we can make those here.
We
Yeah.
can print that off, right?
Donna, is that
Jeremy,
yours, that plan?
It's
If
Deb's,
I'm-
I'm going to borrow it.
Okay.
If somebody made a list of the sections in town that have the signs and give it to Jeannie, could Jeannie print off those sections off the GIS map?
Say that again?
If somebody gave Jeannie a list of the streets and the intersections we wanted to look at, could Jeannie then do that, print them off?
Either Jeannie or Carrie, yes.
So is there somebody that would like to look at the downtown master plan and put a list of the streets and intersections together to give to Jeremy to ask somebody in the office to do?
I'll take a look at those and come up with an idea, run it past you, and then we'll get it printed.
That would be great. Thank you, Richard.
Larger scale,
Yeah.
and I'll let you know, and you can assign the team or whatever we're supposed, how we're.
Or we can send out an email and people can volunteer to buddy up.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yep.
I'll share this with you.
think that mine's at home. I gotta tear the house apart.
You have one.
We all-
There are a
we
few,
all-
you have a
few and
downtown
far
master
between.
plan?
I have it somewhere in my office, yes. I just haven't seen it for a while, so I'm trying to remember exactly where it is.
I returned mine.
Yeah, you borrowed this one. We can, how many do you have in the,
I believe I have one.
you have, your one? Okay.
And I believe I have Audra's, or maybe that's Audra's, I don't know.
Maybe a couple of them
Mine.
at the library, I'm pretty sure.
There may be one in the library. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you, Richard, very much. Okay, let's hop back up now that we've got Rafi here to talk about our mural, the project and financing. And I have a quick update. I did go to the select board, last select board meeting, and they did give us permission, or they did vote to allow the town to be our fiscal agent. There was one contingency, and that was that we get a letter of agreement with David, that David recognizes this is going to happen on his wall, and that he is okay with it happening on his wall. And
No, I was just going to say, all of that information about what was going to happen on the wall that you sent me and then I forwarded to David, and he said, looks great, fine with me, but he still needs to sign something, but who goes to him and has the form or whatever?
well, the
that he has
town,
to-
Bill Kelly will produce some letter of agreement for us to do something on,
Okay.
do it on his wall, that he would then
The
sign
town
off on.
would send that to him.
Or we would take it to him or something, but Bill Kelly would Bill Kelly would put it together. But before we proceed with that letter getting written, I've been thinking about the structure that we've proposed to put up on that wall and the cost of it. And I brought this up at the last meeting because the structure that we've put together in order to be able to have Rafi's art brought that price up to $20,000 for the total project. And Sign Services gave Rafi a good quote for them. They gave us a deal they could, but it still is an $11,000 plus cost before we have any art. And I've been concerned about whether that's a realistic amount of money to be able to raise in our community now. There've been some other fundraisers that have been slightly sluggish. And I felt like it's a lot of money to spend on that wall. So I wanted to have the team have the opportunity to talk about that. Rafi has done an enormous amount of work, and he's invested a lot of creative energy and time, as well as Colin. But I'm wondering if part of, just driven by that cost, if we should rethink what we want to do with that wall. What we're doing is, Colin has some beautiful designs, and what we're doing is we're creating a superstructure in order to mount the art on the wall. We're not taking what the wall gives us and creating art on the wall. And I think we need to rethink if that's really the way we want to go.
Just add something. You have a concern about fundraising, and I'm aware that we've had some conversation about fundraising on the board about different things. I know the library just had to cut their fundraising in half. The middle school is having trouble fundraising for the things they needed to fundraise for because they couldn't pay for anything. What was the third one? We have Jazz in June, which is fundraising has been slow for that, and that's a whole, hopefully a bookend to SIF that will help, bring new people to town. And Matt Brown has put a tremendous amount of work into that. I also know they're fundraising for the new home up on Washington Street. And, for everybody I talk to, it's just tough. A lot of the people that used to fund a lot of these things are just no longer available.
Other towns have had trouble too, haven't they? Like the Rockport Library.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're still working that. So there seems to be, I know some people have, said, one of the discussions we've had about the library as well, because we're having to come up with monies to fix their HVAC system. And some of the people feel that, well, they just have this fundraising ability when they go out and fundraise for it. And they tried, and they had to cut their fundraising from $5 million in half to $2.5 million. They had a professional fundraiser talk to the people that usually go to those things, and they said it's just not available. The funds are not available right now. So I don't know why, because you think there's a lot of resources in this town, but it's just not available for fundraising. It's a tough thing right now. And I've seen it in every meeting I've been in.
It's a big ticket. So, I mean, it's very ambitious. And the other thing about what we're doing is that we really have to pay for those materials before Colin can get started. Because if we raise half the money to pay for the sign services material, we have to have the other half in order to pay that company. We can't leave them with half the bill unpaid. So if we don't raise all of the money to buy that material and to have it done, we can't go to the town and ask the town to pay for that. So that's sort of where I am.
Well, I think a mural is a very strong idea, and why don't we do a mural? I mean, every other thing I've seen recently has been a mural.
You mean
Rockland?
on the bricks
Directly
itself?
on the wall.
Directly on, use the
On
wall.
the painted wall. I mean,
Right,
I've
right,
always
right.
advocated that because I
Yeah.
like, sort of an architectural term, but I like the texture of it, as opposed to something, but it's, the wall's cheaper than the sign.
I think it would be a much easier sell for fundraising. I think
I do
when
too.
people think mural, they think
Mural.
Wall.
painted on the wall.
Yeah.
And that was our original plan,
It
right?
was, but we all were, entranced by Colin's art, and his style, but his style doesn't work on the wall. I think we could do something this year. I think we can raise enough money to get Karen Painting, who is willing to donate paint if we pay for his labor and his scissor lift, to come in and to give us a fresh coat of paint on that wall so it doesn't look the way it has looked for the last, I don't know how many years. And it could be a staged fundraising, and I think having a nice fresh coat of paint on that wall might also help us in fundraising, because people are seeing something is going to happen. And I don't know whether Colin would be interested in, or could try to design something that would work on that wall. Doesn't have to be as detailed figures. I mean, that's part of the problem. His art is so,
Right.
But that's what I had a question, like, you said a little while ago, that wall would not be Colin's style. And I'm just,
the wall as it is
yeah,
doesn't suit
yeah.
his
No, but
style.
I'm just questioning that. I would think that his art could go on that wall. his
You don't think
style.
it's,
What do you think, Rafi?
I mean, he's pretty detailed,
Yeah,
so, and I wonder about the longevity of just that wall with paint on it too. Like like when you were speaking with the people that would resurface it, I mean,
they were concerned about that resurfacing.
The drive-it
lasting,
people.
The drive-it people.
I mean, this should last 5 years at least. And I don't know if just the paint on that surface would be enough to maintain an art piece over that.
Because the surface is worse than the brick surfaces we have in Rockland.
Oh, yeah, well, certainly, the brick's stable. I mean, this you can pull chunks out of. So, I mean, but I definitely, painting it is a community, I mean, just making it look nice.
I don't want to end there, though. I don't want just a solid color on that
Yeah.
wall. And I also think if we're going to do some fundraising, what do you all think? Raise some money to give Colin some money for all the efforts he has so far put into the project.
Unless he can
Unless-
come up with a design that is much more abstract and bigger scale and less labor.
Would he be able to do that?
Would he be interested in?
I mean, I can certainly approach him about it. And, yeah, I mean, he was thinking about painting directly on the wall too. It was just the matter of that the because of the condition of the wall, and then this other means of potentially doing it.
Which made his whole painting so much easier, because he was gonna do it in a controlled
Right,
space,
it's a
controlled
controlled-
environment,
Right, and
Just do
no
the one
scissor
panel at a
lift and
time.
all, yeah.
you know, it's a whole different thing.
Staging, no keeping
Yeah,
cars.
I mean,
away
I
from it.
still like that whole plan, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think to actualize it, it was gonna cost, yeah, $20,000, a little less, but yes, yeah.
That's up there.
It'd be good to have Colin here. I wish, you
Yes.
know, that,
Well, I wanted
To
us
see
to
what his
have
reaction
this
is.
conversation before, I mean, Rafi and I tried to get together and we couldn't, so I had to write him an email. I didn't want Rafi to have come in and have us have this conversation cold, and I wouldn't want to bring Colin in and have him have
Well,
this
it might
conversation
actually
cold.
be easier for Rafi to talk to Colin before he came
then
to
come
us
in.
and then come, just so that he might say to you, no, I really don't want to do that. And then,
And
Then
then
we
we
go from
rethink everything.
Right, about reimbursing him somewhat
Yeah,
for all the time
Oh,
he's
yeah.
devoted to it.
And I think we can do that. We need 1,000 for Karen painting, and we have pledges already of 400. So I think we can get to that 1,000 for Karen's painting with doing some publicity and knocking on some doors. I'd like to get more than that, obviously. I don't want all of a sudden have some money go in the bank account and then have the bank account be at zero, because we will want to be, after we have, if Colin believes he could do something on that wall, we do need to be buying materials, and that, so we'll need to have money in the bank in order to be able to do that. So do you all feel comfortable with asking Rafi to have a Plan B conversation with Colin, and then have Colin come in and talk to us?
Well, I do. I was just curious when when Rafi has that conversation with Colin. It might be useful to have a rough idea, underline rough, of what we want in the way of artwork. I mean, do we want something that's colorful?
yes?
Do we want something that's abstract? Do we want something that's traditional? I think we need to give them a little guidance on this. And, the designs that he's given us so far, I like, but I'm not sure they would be popular, frankly. I mean, I think we all probably like them, but I am not sure that they would make a big hit when you put them on the wall and people said, well, I don't get it. I was expecting to see, and now I'm not suggesting necessarily that we do the expected, like a schooner coming over the horizon or something like that, That's what might be the expected. But I just think we want to have something that's that's likely to be popular.
I was going to say, there are murals probably all over the country. So maybe
Yeah.
somebody doing just Googling what's out there.
Yeah.
And seeing if there's something that says, if we get, here's a place to start with, and we could move on from that. There's got to be, we're not the first town to do this. There's got to be some stuff out there.
Right.
That's more than just the generic
Good idea.
colored walls. Instead of trying to figure it out, let's look and see what's out there and see. if
Would
there's
another way be to present to Colin? Colin, we have a clean slate here now, and you can back out anytime you want to, Colin. But what would your idea be to do this? Both your line work, that's what you want to call, the way he does it, and what would your idea be, and give him sort of a carte blanche to do it, to come up with an idea and colors. This would only be, an idea from him and probably a sketch. Then if that sketch could be presented to the public, you'd know right then, like it's this way or this way, and whether we get the money. And because then people would have a image of what's planned to be there, and they're, you know,
And that would really facilitate the fundraising. Because we're going to have to do
and he
some
would be
graphics.
paid for this.
Yes.
Whether,
Yeah.
whether the result is like, you know, thumbs down or whatever. But I know Colin, I think he'd probably, you know, jump at this. And I have confidence in his creative ability. I wouldn't be wanting to go and take a image of a mural in Philadelphia or Detroit and say, we want the same thing here. Now, we want,
Well,
I just Googled, and I just Googled public wall murals, and there's a ton, and some of the really untraditional, most of them are sort of the same thing you see everywhere,
Yeah.
but every once in a while, there's something that bumps up that's like, wow, that's very different. So, you know, maybe there's some clues about, and, you know, I would think Colin might have a good idea of, you know,
Yes.
Yeah, I love Colin's work, and I don't know how we got to, I mean, I kind of came into this late, and Colin was already engaged. But did we ever do like a call for artists to do something like this? I mean, that's another option, and I mean, I'm not throwing Colin's work or him as an artist out, but, I mean, you never know what you could get. I mean, we may find,
did we allude to that in?
and I'm just asking,
that-
I'm asking the
They did,
question.
I think they did that in
Youth
Biddeford,
arts or whatever it's
just
called?
recently.
Yes.
Well, I think that would help as
Yeah.
opposed to. but we
What was the
didn't- we-
question?
Did we ever seek out other artists to do this?
Just like I called the artist, say, hey, we've got to, like, put it on the town's website, kind of like an RFP, but not, this is a call for artists to do public art on a private building in the town of Camden, and it's a proposal.
One of the
And then you'd have a
reasons-
beauty contest, you mean, after that?
Pardon?
If you went that way, you'd put an RFP out, and you'd get like,
These images of
well, I see,
leaves with
I think her name's Lynn Donovan, she drives a
almost like sponge.
car with a vanity plate that says mural artist. You'd have like her come with an idea, Colin come up with an idea, somebody else come up with an idea, and then you put it out to like a beauty contest.
No, I'm not saying a beauty contest, I'm just saying as a way to get other artists' ideas. I'm just throwing that out there.
How would you
and
say,
I have
Donna,
nothing
you're in
against-
that world?
I got
Well, I was
nothing
just
against
looking
Colin
at-
at all, because I love his work.
Just looking at this photograph of a mural, and it's nature, obviously, and it looks like it would work on a rough wall. These canopies are almost like sponge painting.
Right, you got shade and
And it's
That's
no
not-
intricate,
The ones in Rockland have been popular.
this is the one,
Yeah.
this is the one in Rockland now, that is water, ocean water, which is
It's interesting.
Who did that one?
really interesting.
I don't know this one.
His name is Tom something, and I think lives locally, and CMCA had a resident artist in resident grant from an organization called the Alice
That's what's in
Beauregard
Rockland.
Foundation that helped pay for that. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool, and it would,
It would
would
cover up
take to a rough-
imperfections.
See,
Cover up imperfections.
It would be really easy. Just
How do
do it
you
with
think
a
this would go
rag.
over in
one in
Camden?
Rockland.
I
There
think
was
it's been
something on
done
the
too
wall that
much.
was just sort of
You know,
incorporated into
They've
the
got theirs.
Oh, yeah.
design, some round.
But
just-
I think we need to see
metal
some
things
nature.
I like
on the
that,
wall.
yeah.
The
Or
second
some
one,
green,
With the fish,
yeah, with the
big,
fish.
huge
Yeah.
plants. I
We
mean,
had
really
incorporated
huge
stuff
scale.
that was
Yeah.
on the wall, and you can
if
incorporate
you-
stuff on the wall.
this one,
public wall, hundreds of them. And there's-
I did.
this almost looks like a mural, that shadow.
In the beginning, when we were first starting this, and we had just come back from Cozumel, and they have murals on walls all over the island, that there's an organization called Panagea, out of Hawaii, where they have artists come from all over the world, and they each do a different mural. And I have no idea, I think it's funded by the organization. And I was trying to see if there was a way that they would come to Camden, but You have to be a bigger place, but they are now redoing some of those. So there are other artists coming in, but there are beautiful murals there, and they're all entirely different. There are some that are very abstract, some that are very, almost photographic, and, but they're beautiful, and they're all ocean-related. So if you get a chance to look at Cozumel and ask.
Seed Foundation,
Yes.
seawalls,
Yes, the
saying
seawalls.
Artists for Oceans.
They're
Wow.
absolutely stunning.
What's it called?
Panagia?
Pangea Seed
Yes.
Foundation.
How do you spell that?
Pangea, P-A-N-G-E-A-S-E-E-D Foundation,
And I
to adopt a
actually
mural. They do
sent
ocean-
them an email.
Public
and
art
Never
oceans.
heard back from them, but,
Are you comfortable going back to Colin and saying the team is thinking about using the wall itself? Or do you want us to give more guidance, as Dave was saying?
No, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
Telling him we're thinking of Plan B, which is using the wall itself
Yeah.
as the canvas.
But don't you think, and Rafi, this is up to you completely, because you're so diplomatic, that, but shouldn't we give him a little guidance about what we want from him? I don't want him to come in here with more proposals that we are not really what we think we want. And again, I'm not using my own judgment about this. I'm trying to think about the community and what will they want, I know that's probably the wrong attitude if you're an artist, but at the same time.
Right. Well, I mean, I think in the process in my feeling, the process with working with Colin, that we have given him direction, he's responded to that.
Okay.
And ultimately leading to a final piece that
Right.
is not going to be exactly his sketch, because he's going to be building it out. So, and I personally would prefer not to have just an abstract piece. I mean, I'd like to have something that makes a statement, or, I think, public art can be very profound. So,
Yeah.
I'm a little,
Yeah, I don't think we're
Waves
talking
on the wall,
modern art. I
uh-huh.
think, and I think we do want something that is suggestive of Camden and its history, and he was on the right track, I think, with the fish in the, going up the ladder and.
Yeah, the stream.
And over the water wheel, and.
well, even the
lobster
tools,
room.
he had converse, like, he did one tool, then someone commented, like, that's not really, come look at my real tool. I mean, I like there's being an authenticity,
Yeah.
that he is a boat builder. I mean,
Another quality I liked about him
Jeremy, we'll see ya. Thanks.
Jeremy.
is his living here. He's a member of our community, and I admired the youthful aspect of it. His youth
Yeah.
and his residence. I mean, those are ours. We own that. And now it was like giving him a chance, or not giving, I don't mean a chance, but he's expressing it. It had those qualities as well.
The first mural that was done in Auckland, which is purely abstract, I love the colors of it, but I would say that pure abstraction, which has happened in the Old Port in Portland. I don't know if you all know, there was a very tall mural in Portland in the Old Port on a square, and it was a
Yes.
trompe l'oeil, a very
Yeah.
sort of classical, looked
Yeah.
like 17th century or 18th century.
Right.
And now it's got a brand-new mural up there, and it's abstraction. Bright and colorful, and I love the idea of color, because we haven't had any color on that wall for so long. And I think color, to make it pop and eye-catching, is important. I think too abstract, to me, people can't relate to it. And I think we do want something And if some of his concepts can be expanded to the wall, expanded over the wall, I think that would be really good. I am concerned about trying to have a popularity contest. and
I am too, yeah.
I don't think that,
Yep.
I think that we need to be the arbiters, and I know the select board certainly want to see what concept we're doing. We are now a town committee. We're not a private committee anymore like we were before.
Yeah.
So we do have sort of more accountability with the town and with the general public than we really did before. But I think
Don't give
having
too
a-
much away, though.
but
Well-
having a popularity contest
It's
is not a.
still our
helpful thing.
responsibility,
It
I
is.
think, we are the design committee,
Right.
to come up with the concept, I think.
Yeah.
And no matter what's there, someone's going to like it, someone's going to like it less, someone's going to be moderate about it, but you've already answered your question today, because everything we've spoken about has been about the artwork, nothing about the wall. The wall is like a fait accompli. I think most people here are comfortable with it, provided it can stay in. I wasn't aware of pieces falling off. I've never seen them over there. Are they on the
Well-
ground?
Well, you can just.
I mean,
go up
if
with a
you
chisel.
go and you can break off a rock or whatever
Yeah.
from that wall,
I think 2 coats of masonry paint will help.
I
Yeah.
think
It's
it's
not
going
gonna
to
help for 20
stabilize it a
it's
little
not gonna-
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care of it for 25 years, but we don't need it to take care of it for 25 years.
Yeah. So now, was there a palette given for those for that, that thing?
When you talked to
By
Steve,
Karen?
did you talk to Steve about color at all?
I mean, he was just thinking like a tan color is what his.
Well, Donna, you ought to get involved, because you're
I just
good.
think that it depends upon the design that
Yeah.
he comes up with.
I mean, I like the dark green or, or something that was going to
That's
coordinate.
why I'd be pleased of having people who are colorists, as opposed to ones who say, I like. See, that's not the way you usually would choose things. Like somebody who knows about it, and
Yeah.
I think you have the abilities.
Oh, but I just think we ought to give Colin the
Yeah,
opportunity
the two of
to
you, right.
come up with a design if he wants to, and then
See what works
See what
for a
works.
background color.
Art is one of those things that everybody thinks they can do it, but they really can't.
Absolutely.
So I think, letting the artist have an opinion on
Yeah.
what would work makes sense.
Yeah,
what he needs to know is that we want a brighter, more inviting wall in that parking lot.
On the wall, and-
On the wall.
Are we talking about from the flashing down, leaving the red
Yes,
brick
and
exposed? I think we were talking about that before.
All the way to the street, up to the brick and up to that dormer that's on the front element.
So it's really the brown,
All
the
the
gray
concrete.
masonry is what we want to cover. So we want to have that conversation with Colin before we say to Steve, Karen, here's 2 days, go paint. Because we want to have an idea of what
That'd be
the
great,
artist would
yeah.
like to have
We need to
as a
have-
background color.
We need to have the design at the same time.
Takes care of the
you know.
wall, on the wall itself.
what, before you choose a color for the background?
Well, we need a design that we can use for fundraising.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
right.
what about,
And
yes,
so the two decisions get made at the same time.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, there's no way we're going to raise any money without some kind of representation of the art. Just isn't going to happen.
and so with that in hand, we can then, Colin can say, okay, if you're gonna give me 2 coats of a background paint, here's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, because this is going to be a field on which he puts the design, and you're going to see that probably as a background, right?
Yeah, right.
So those two things go hand in hand.
And now we're looking at about $10,000, correct?
That was what we were hoping to
Yeah.
be able to do first time out of the box.
Right.
And if we have 1,000 for the 2 coats of masonry paint, then the rest will have to go to materials,
And color.
whatever the other labor and Colin.
His concept, I would think, would want to anticipate that he hasn't got all the time in the world, and the
Right.
design has to be done in a way that is quicker than usual, quicker than his normal intricate work.
Yeah.
Could it be something that could be stenciled on the wall in sections and some people could come help him paint? I mean, you did that in Rockland. It was partly a community project. We had, because I think there were sort of stencils that
Yeah.
were put on the wall and then,
And then the artist
then-
just filled the color in.
or help,
And community was brought in.
Yes.
Yeah.
youth
I
came
even
in.
do that on a stencil.
You're the flashy one.
But for fundraising, I see two possibilities, well, three possibilities. Crowdfunding is one way to go. A sponsor, if it's not too expensive, is another way to go. I mean, that is like, boy, shouting loud and clear, we're here and, we care about the town. And the other is a possibility of a grant, like the Community Development Foundation. Did I say that right?
Well,
Yeah.
we.
Maine Community Foundation.
I didn't think about the Maine Community Foundation. We did go to the Maine Arts Commission
Yeah,
and had long conversations with them. And because at the time we were doing this, it was not a public process,
yeah.
they wouldn't touch it. Because it needed to be something where the public was involved, and in as much case, having discussions with the public about the history behind what the design was, and getting input on what the design would be, and they were looking for a public process for creating the mural. And at that time, we did not think that was feasible.
Plus, it wasn't a significant amount of money, if I remember, that they were going to offer, was it?
Yes, it usually isn't.
It isn't a lot. It isn't a lot. Now, the Ellis Beauregard Foundation that helps fund things does have a section where they do $3,000 to $5,000 project grants, and I could try to explore that. That's who did the artist in residency at CMCA for the ocean water. The artist Tom, somebody I believe, that came through them, so we could explore that.
There's even a Camden Foundation, and it was created by the owners of Aldermere Farm, the Chatfields.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's still in existence, and they do make grants of, in town, I get the feeling they're pretty easy to get, and you can get, I've seen as much as $10,000, which is on the high side for them, but there are lots of $1,000 and $2,000 and $3,000 grants.
We put together a couple of them that would help a great deal. So we have decided we would like a concept of a design in order to move forward, to be able to start our fundraising with, and then also to give Steve Karen a go and a request for a background color. And then the question I have for you, if Steve Karen's going to come in and do it in 2 stages, because it'll be 2 coats, what kind of notice would you need to put up some kind of a don't cross this yellow tape in order so Steve Karen could get to the wall? I mean, we want to block off the parking in front of the wall if we're going to have that background painting done, and of course we do it when the mural's going to be executed. But what kind of notice would you need in order to get some sawhorses and tape up?
Typically, what I do is, I would need at least a day's notice, maybe 2, but I could work it out with the PD that I leave cones or barricades or whatever down there, and then they block it off at night when the cars are out of there.
Okay,
And then the next morning, it'll be all blocked off.
okay, so 2 days' notice for Karen to come, and then I imagine I better check in with Audra if we need select board.
Well, I was wondering about
Approval.
that, do we?
Closing the streets you do, I suppose, closing a parking lot.
I'll ask Audra.
Yeah,
Check with Audra, I don't, if it's for just 1 day or 2 days blocked off.
I don't remember what Steve said, it's probably a 2-day.
I think it was 2 days, yeah.
He was gonna do 2 coats.
Yeah, you probably want to get some approval from some.
You could ask Janice,
Yeah,
she's
that's
pretty
a
good
good
at
idea.
this. She's good sense about that.
We'd probably just want to they would probably just put a notice out in the media and on the website.
Yeah.
Oh, saying no parking against the wall for these 2 days?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, we're just about at time. So I think we have some marching orders. You're comfortable talking? to
Yeah,
Colin?
yeah.
I'll get back to Sign Services and thank them so very much for, their contribution and their thoughts, but we're gonna,
We might go back, who knows? You don't have to completely shut them off.
no, just say that we're
Yeah.
looking at Plan
Yeah,
B right now.
Right.
And tell them it's a matter of money. I mean, because we really like their system.
Oh, we like the
yeah.
product.
Yeah.
David liked the product.
Yes, me too.
The select board didn't
Excuse me.
dislike the
Oh, I
product. They were concerned that if the property sold, what would happen to it? And they were anxious to think that the town could then have that to replace somewhere else. But I don't think we would need to worry about that if we're doing Plan B. Next meeting, can you take a look at what I sent you, our work plan? Everything on there is either done, we just have the signs and the mural. A lot of the other stuff is just follow-up. I'd like us to think about what's going to be in our next work plan, because next session for us, for this team, is going to have to come up with a new work plan for the future. So spend some time, whether it's looking at the downtown master plan. One thought I had was, do a couple of us want to go to a meeting with the Camden Area Business Group and ask them for what kind of priorities or thoughts they have, or what they'd like to see as far as aesthetic improvements or structural improvements in the downtown?
The medium for that might be, connect with the I think the Camden Area Business Group Board hasn't really touched on subjects like this for quite a while. But there is this, are you familiar with Connect Over Coffee?
Yes, I know, you meet at 8, people get together at 8 o'clock.
Once a month, the
First Wednesday of the month.
And there, I've only been to one, but they're pretty.
Well, maybe 2 or 4, but I don't.
How would you do, like somebody gets up and gives a little 5-minute
Well, first
talk
there's a
about?
host.
There's a host, okay.
Yeah. So it might be Allen Agency, or it might be the library, or it might be the fire station, or, right?
They move it around every month, and everybody gets up and talks about, gives a little introduction about what they're
Oh.
doing. And there are a lot of new businesses, so it's been pretty well attended lately. And I believe it's the first Wednesday of every month. Yeah.
So how does one get on the agenda? Like 1 or 2 of us could go and give a little talk and say,
Karen Brace,
Karen is, okay. That'd also be, we could talk about the mural when we have a concept of doing the whole wall. We could also go to Connect Over Coffee as a way of,
Exactly, yeah.
okay.
Because that's where you could find out what people think of it, without
Right.
necessarily making a contest out of
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, Richard is going to do get some GIS maps for us, taking a look at possible sign locations. We'll team up and take a look at current conditions to compare that to the downtown master plan suggestions for wayfinding sign locations. Rafi and I have a couple of mural follow-up things to do. And are we each going to try to have some time to take a look at the MDOT plan, if possible, between now and then? And then we're going to talk,
How are we looking at that? We're going to the,
You can go, the easiest is to go to Jeremy's office. Yes.
planning office. And we're going to talk about future projects, what ideas we have for future projects for the next coming year or two.
And Jeremy will also see if he can get a working plan.
Right, and Jeremy's going to do some follow-up on MDOT on some of the questions we had. So our next meeting will be in June, and we may have a conflict in June because election's the first Tuesday, isn't it?
It would be Tuesday the 4th, I believe.
Okay, so our meeting date, if we're going to stick with doing the second Tuesdays, would be the 11th of June.
Are we going to wait that long to know what Colin says?
If I get,
Okay.
yeah, I'll let you know.
And you think
That's no, I think we should try to keep moving. Okay, next step.
Everybody should read Deb's annual report, which I think was an excellent job. of
Thank you.
Summarizing what we've been doing this year, and making it
Thank
sound like we're accomplishing something.
Well, we have done a lot of thinking, a lot of studying, and given the town quite a bit of information and priorities on upcoming projects, and
Yeah.
that's basically what.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
find
good.
it uplifting to read it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Dave,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. All right, next design team meeting is June 11th. Holy cow, how could it be June?
I might be able to move
We'll just
Something's
talk,
Well-
happening in my house that night, that I have to.
Well, I can imagine if it's in your house, you're the hostess.
I need to be there.
Okey doke, so,
And I
we
don't
will
think
get.
I can go that day either. I get this thing called Mohs surgery.
Oh, depending on how you feel afterwards, you may or may not. But we will be, I think what we need to do is move this forward and keep things rolling. And so let's, as one has ideas, and if one finds ideas you want to give Colin, I think on murals, I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
And month 2, how's it going?
Oh, great.
Good.
And Ava got her license today. That's
Oh!
I have to go
That's
down
why we
to
couldn't find a
Southbridge.
parking.
Now,
She's been pretty busy.
is that great or not?
she cannot be old enough.
She is.
Well, she's still that size, but she's old enough.
How did the soccer game go Saturday?
Lacrosse, she
Oh,
won.
lacrosse.
Yeah,
Yay.
they won. So, all good.
Yeah, it's all good with
See you
her, she's
around
doing
there.
great, bye Rafi.